She was publicly shamed by her crush's girlfriend. Chung-Ah was saved by the school's scariest delinquent. He told everyone they were dating to protect her. She discovered the terrifying bad boy was actually a nerd. Now mysterious stalkers were watching them from the shadows. And that was only the beginning. In the heavy quiet of a bedroom, Kang Chung-Ah finds herself leaning over Ban Seok-jae. Clothes are strewn across the floor in a mess of discarded fabric, and sweat drips from her face as she stares down at him with wide, startled eyes. She internally admits she wasn't in her right mind at the time. Below her, the man gazes back with a calm, piercing intensity that screams 1,000 words without him ever opening his mouth. The tension in the room thickens as Seok-jae reaches up, gently cupping her face. Our girl looks down at him, her face flushing a deep, burning red while sweat continues to bead on her skin. She tells herself that if things had been even remotely normal, there's no way they ever would have ended up in this position. The two remain frozen on the floor, locked in a reckless moment they never should have shared. The scene then cuts away to a sunlit, modern cafe where a group of friends is hanging out. A voice from off-panel breaks the casual atmosphere, asking if any of them have heard the name Ban Seok-jae. The mere mention of the guy sparks an immediate wildfire of gossip. One girl labels him a total jerk who exclusively targets women already in relationships. Another adds that he's notorious for dismantling every campus couple he comes across. The rumors even get darker, suggesting he doesn't stop at students and frequently messes around with married women too. The cafe talk takes a turn for the scandalous as one girl asks if they've heard the biggest rumor yet. She claims that back in the day, the senior actually seduced his own department's teaching assistant. A mental image of the man being embraced by a woman in a quiet hallway surfaces, only adding more fuel to his predatory reputation. Supposedly, the TA was so hooked on him that she even called off her own engagement. Though to him, she was just a temporary fling that ended in wreckage. He's shown with a predatory smirk that perfectly matches the stories. However, the group realizes the old rumors aren't the main event. The real news is that he apparently has an actual girlfriend now. The girls wonder if it's a real relationship or if he's just playing with her like all the others. One girl admits she doesn't have the full story, but she wonders if the campus heartbreaker made some kind of official declaration about this new mystery girl. Her friend laughs at the idea, mocking the concept of a guy like him going public and asking if they're living in a drama. Despite the mockery, they're all dying to know who she is, especially since rumors about the girl have been spreading across campus like a plague. Lim Yong-ju shifts her focus to her friend sitting right there at the table. She calls out to her, asking if she's even bothering to listen to the tea they're spilling. Our girl looks up with a dazed, sweaty expression, stammering that she was listening, more or less though her panicked reaction says otherwise. Jung-ju reminds her friend that she was just complaining about needing a way to stop liking Woo-jin. It's painfully obvious the girl wasn't paying attention to a single word. Jung-ju then drops a bombshell. The infamous player's new girlfriend is actually a student in the business department, just like them. Chung-Ah tries to laugh it off, asking if her friend is really buying into these rumors, but Jung-ju just looks confused by the deflection. The noise at the nearby table cranks up as the other girls continue their interrogation of the gossip. One of them brags that she just secured the actual name of the new girlfriend. She confirms one more time that the mystery girl is definitely a business major, making the revelation feel uncomfortably close to home. The name finally drops like a hammer, Kang Chung-Ah. At the table, our girl internally groans, admitting to herself that yes, they're talking about her. She's officially introduced as a 23-year-old business major and, according to the entire campus, the latest conquest of the notorious Ban Seok-jae. Young-ju is so floored by the reveal that she literally spits her drink back into her glass. Our girl admits it's hard to wrap her head around, and she feels just as shocked as everyone else. She describes herself as a simple 23-year-old returning student who has suddenly found herself at the center of a very awkward storm. Suddenly, she's in a public relationship with the most infamous guy on campus. To explain how she ended up in this absolute mess, she realizes she has to go back to the very beginning. It all starts with the long, painful history of her unrequited love for another man. Flashing back to her high school days, our girl returns home and announces she's back. She explains that there has always been one person in her life who was basically the boy-next-door childhood friend. A voice from the other room greets her, making her look up with a bright blush and hopeful, expectant eyes. In the kitchen, Yoon Woo-jin is busy prepping a meal, telling her dinner will be ready soon if she can hold her horses. Our girl reveals that he was her very first love and the long-time object of her one-sided affection. To make matters worse, he was also her older brother's best friend, which meant he was always around. In her eyes, Woo-jin was the definition of perfect. He was handsome, tall, and smart, but also popular and a total family man. He was even a talented cook, making him seem like the ultimate catch as she watched him hang out with her brother, Jun-hyun. The man seemed to have zero flaws, except for one glaring issue. The scene shifts from the warmth of the kitchen to a freezing, snowy night in the city. Footsteps crunch through the fresh snow as the true, messy nature of his dating life is finally unmasked. It turns out that for all his perfection, the man is absolutely abysmal at dating. A blonde girl slaps him across the face, screaming that she hopes he meets a woman just like himself so he can finally understand what it's like to cry tears of blood. She calls him a fucking bastard and storms off, leaving a stunned Chung-Ah to watch the carnage from the shadows. Watching the drama unfold, our girl sighs, already knowing what comes next. She eventually joins him on a nearby swing set. Over the years, she's noticed a very specific, recurring pattern to every single one of his failed relationships. The pattern is a two-step death spiral. First, he becomes way more devoted than necessary, playing the part of the perfect boyfriend who carries every heavy bag. Then comes step 2, where he inevitably gets dumped in the most miserable fashion possible. Back on the swings, the man looks over and asks if that girl's screaming match earlier startled her. Her heart aches for him as she looks down, telling him she just wants him to meet someone good for once. In her head, she defines exactly what that means: someone kind and devoted who would never even think about using him. She realizes with a bit of a sting that she's describing herself. The quiet moment on the swings fades as the years roll by. 4 years later, a banner hangs over a bustling university campus, welcoming a new batch of freshmen. The cherry blossoms are in full bloom, marking the start of a brand new chapter. Our girl successfully makes it into the business department at Hankook University. She worked herself to the bone just to get into the same school and major as Woo Jin when he spots her and calls her name. She's initially over the moon to finally be by his side, but that joy is short-lived. She's about to be hit with a cold, hard truth about the man she loves. The man tells her it feels surreal to see her all grown up and attending the same university. She agrees, beaming as she tells him how happy she is to be there with him. She feels a rush of excitement, thinking things are finally going her way, right up until a sudden interruption kills the vibe. A swarm of girls suddenly surrounds the man, complaining that he never called them and asking why he's been so hard to catch. Our girl stands back in total shock as she watches the spectacle. She realizes that her brother's best friend is essentially the resident pushover for every girl on campus. It turns out he was infamous at the university as the master of the fish tank, known for keeping a dozen girls on the hook at once. Strangely, even after learning the truth about his management style, she couldn't just kill her feelings. Looking back, she admits she clung to a desperate, pathetic hope that she might be the one fish who was actually different. She sits alone with a beer, looking miserable as she reflects on her status. Despite her delusions of being special, she realizes she's no different from any other girl in his collection. At another table, the man announces to the room that he and a new blonde girl have started dating, while the girl clings to his arm in triumph. For a guy like him, dating and breaking up is as easy as breathing, but for her, it's never been that simple. She watches them from afar, drinking heavily as the reality sinks in. He's never going to give her even a sliver of his heart. The memory of him getting slapped by his ex resurfaces, a reminder of his never-ending cycle of romantic failure. That memory of the girl screaming that he's a bastard hits home, and our girl finally has to face facts. She realizes that the man who always acts like a sad, wounded puppy is actually a major jerk. He spent years shattering hearts while she stood on the sidelines and watched it all happen. She finally accepts that she was just another fish that couldn't find a way out of his tank. The scene shifts to the recent past, where she's sitting alone in a stylish bar, dressed up and waiting for the moment that will finally end this cycle once and for all. Staring out the window at the city lights, she thinks about the past 3 years she's wasted trying to get over him. Despite all the mental gymnastics, she's still stuck in the exact same emotional hole she started in. She's tried it all: endless blind dates, taking a break from school, and even trying to distract herself with the stock market. None of it worked. The results were always a big fat zero, but today is going to be different, because she's finally ready to take a drastic final step. She's decided on her absolute last resort, a plan to finally buy her freedom. She's going to confess to her childhood friend. The catch? She wants him to reject her so hard that she has no choice but to move on. The man enters the bar with a smile, waving to her as she greets him from the table. Everything is in place, and she's even double-checked that he recently broke up with his latest girl. All she has to do is say the words and let the rejection wash over her, but just as she gathers her nerves, his phone starts buzzing like crazy, and his face immediately goes serious the second he sees the screen. The phone won't stop ringing, and he apologetically asks for a second to handle it. Our girl tells him it's fine, but she can't stop herself from asking a pointed question. She wonders if by any chance he's already crawling back to that same girl again. The man looks surprised as his phone continues to blow up. He mutters a distracted confirmation before standing up to take the call. Without a second thought, he walks away, leaving her sitting completely alone at the table they were supposed to share. She stares at the empty table, the weight of the moment crashing down. She thinks about how getting dumped is never easy, but looking at her current situation, she can only conclude that her entire life has become one big, pathetic joke. She laments that she can't even get rejected the way she planned. Her gaze drifts across the bar until she spots a face she recognizes. She's stunned to see Ban Seok-jae sitting there being held close by a woman with long hair. The woman looks married, confirming the rumors that the campus player only goes for taken women. After she leaves, he sits there alone, looking somber. Our girl lets out a bitter chuckle, realizing she's in no position to judge someone else's mess. But then she notices something that makes her stop in her tracks. She focuses on the man and realizes something that seems impossible. The notorious heartbreaker is actually crying. She watches in pure disbelief as a single tear rolls down his face while he stares blankly into the distance. The campus legend looks completely broken, his eyes brimming with moisture as a long trail of tears tracks down his cheek. It's a side of him that absolutely no one on campus ever expected to see. Our girl can feel his eyes on her and wonders why he's staring. Caught off guard, she feels a sudden heat rise to her face. She quickly snaps her head away to avoid eye contact, deciding it's definitely for the best if she just minds her own business. She tells herself that getting tangled up with a guy like him never ends well. Suddenly, a hand clamps down on her shoulder, pinning her to her seat. A voice announces she's finally been found, followed by a sharp insult as a woman looms over her with a nasty glare. The woman is Min Soo-jeong, Woo Jin's current girlfriend, and she's demanding to know why our girl won't stop throwing herself at her man. Chung-Ah protests, insisting she's done no such thing, and even holds up her phone to prove she hasn't reached out once. Soo-jeong isn't having it, asking if she really looks like a total fool. Soo-jeong accuses her of just playing the long game, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. She claims the girl is just biding her time while the man dates everyone else, hoping he'll eventually settle for her as a consolation prize. A memory of the two friends on a playground swing set surfaces, highlighting years of wasted, one-sided devotion. Soo-jeong doesn't hold back, calling her a loyal dog that just hangs around an empty house waiting for its master. She asks if she's wrong, leaving our girl speechless and trembling. The insult hits a raw nerve, and she realizes she's just bone-tired of this entire cycle. Standing there under their judgmental stares, the weight of her wasted effort finally crushes her. All the days she spent struggling to move on from this love suddenly feel like a massive, pointless waste of time. The other bar patrons start whispering, calling her a fake friend and immediately taking the girlfriend's side. Our girl begins to spiral, wondering if they're right and if this is all her fault. Just as she's about to break, a sudden presence appears as an arm drapes over her shoulder. Ban Seok-jae steps in, pulling her into a firm, protective embrace from behind. He looks Soo-jeong right in the eye and asks why she'd think his babe would ever have a thing for her boyfriend. He drops a smirk, declaring that his babe only has eyes for him. Chung-ah's face turns a bright, panicked red as she freezes in his arms. He leans in close, his face nearly pressing against hers as he playfully asks, "Right, babe?" The crowd and Soo-jeong are left in stunned silence, unable to process the sudden romantic turn. The drama transitions into the second chapter as the scene shifts back to the bar counter. The chaotic energy has cooled into a heavy, awkward quiet. Our girl can only manage a small groan, her brain still short-circuiting over the encounter. The man catches her off guard by asking if she knows who he is. When he points out that she witnessed everything earlier, she frantically denies it, claiming she didn't see a thing. He isn't buying the act and reaches out, making her flinch as his hand moves toward her face. Instead of anything hostile, he gently brushes her hair back with surprising tenderness. Looking at her with a soft expression, he begins to open up about his own perspective, letting his guard down to share how he really feels. He admits that, for him, love is nothing but a struggle. The guy explains that it's so exhausting he often wants to quit the concept entirely, but he's finding that walking away isn't as simple as it sounds. Chung-Ah is wary at first, wondering why he's being so vulnerable with her. She can't tell if it's just the alcohol talking, or if he's the type to be honest only with strangers he never expects to see again. She begins to wonder if he's opening up, because they're both stuck in the same miserable boat. Eventually, she can't help but admit she feels exactly the same way. Without even realizing it, she finds herself letting her guard down around the campus player. Just as they connect, the atmosphere in the bar shifts abruptly. In the present day, Youngju screams across the cafe table, demanding to know if they actually kissed. Our girl nearly lunges over to cover her friend's mouth, hissing at her to pipe down. She clarifies that there was no kiss because the guy passed out the second he finished talking, much to her friend's disappointment. Back in the flashback, Ban Seok-jae is face down on the counter, mumbling nonsense. It's clear to Chung-Ah that he's a total lightweight who can't handle his liquor. Feeling like she's reached her limit for the night, she takes a second to figure out her next move. She stares at the sleeping man, torn on what to do. Leaving him there after such a vulnerable moment feels wrong, but hauling him home sounds like a nightmare. However, one look at the torrential rain pouring outside makes it clear she has to make a choice. She decides to take him back. After hauling his dead weight through the downpour, she finally reaches a building entrance. To her absolute shock, she realizes he actually lives right here. She can't believe she never noticed him before. As it turns out, they're next-door neighbors. She tries to nudge him awake, calling him senior, but he groans that he hates that title. Just as she's about to leave him at his door, needs to wake up and get inside for some real rest. But all she gets is a weak mumble in return. The woman from the bar appears in the hallway looking frantic. She storms over, demanding to know why the man hasn't been picking up his phone. The woman yells about how worried she was while Chung-Ah watches, confused why she's back after hitting him earlier. Our boy weakly pushes her off, telling her to beat it because he doesn't want to see her face. Ji-seon looks wounded, asking if he's still upset about what she said. Ji-seon tries to usher the unresponsive man into his apartment to talk. Our girl hesitates, wondering if she should stay out of it. But she remembers him saying how hard love is for him. She can't just stand there and watch as the other woman drags him away. Chung-Ah suddenly lunges forward and grabs the woman's arm, shouting for her to stop. Ji-seon turns with a cold, piercing gaze, asking if she's invisible or something. She then softens slightly with an apology, admitting she's a bit out of it herself. Ji-seon thanks her for bringing our Seok-jae home and reaches for her purse to offer taxi money. Chung-Ah stands her ground, stating she didn't bring him to his house. She looks up with a determined shout and declares that she's actually taking him to her place. Our girl's face is on fire, but she doesn't flinch. Ji-seon is left completely speechless, her jaw dropping in shock. Taking advantage of the stun, she grabs the guy and begins pulling him away from the frozen woman. She shouts a final goodbye and shoves him through her doorway, slamming the door shut with a loud bang. Ji-seon is left standing alone in the hallway, looking bewildered as her phone starts buzzing again. Standing outside the closed door, Ji-seon answers the call. She confirms into the receiver that she has successfully verified that he made it home safe. The woman remains in the hallway reporting over the phone that he's back. When the person on the other end asks how he's doing, she looks at the door with a complicated expression and can only manage to say, well. Ji-seon ends the call, promising to give the full details later. Inside the apartment, the air is heavy and silent. Our girl and the drenched man stand together in the entryway, where she finally lets out a long, relieved sigh after the hallway showdown. The reality of her bold move finally sinks in, and our girl starts panicking internally. She stammers out an apology for the interruption, but insists he shouldn't leave right now. She asks him to trust her and stay as he stares at her in silence. Chung-Ah asks him to wait for just a second. She knows it's a weird request given the circumstances, but after seeing how soaked he is, she works up the nerve to ask if he'd like to change into some dry clothes. Waiting nervously outside the room, our girl asks if he's finished. Inside, his discarded, soaking wet clothes lie on the floor while he pulls on a dry shirt. When the man walks back into the living room, Chung-Ah is instantly floored by how incredible he looks. She realizes the power of a handsome face is no joke. Even a stretched-out old t-shirt looks like high-end vintage fashion on a stunner like him. He mentions that the clothes feel pretty old, and she nervously explains they're just some pajamas she had lying around. When he asks if they belong to a boyfriend, she frantically clarifies they were left by her older brother Kang Jun-hyun. Our guy looks relieved, smiling as he says he understands. He follows up by asking if that means she isn't seeing anyone. Our girl's face turns beet red as she wonders if he's actually flirting with her. Panicking, she quickly announces she's getting a towel for his hair to hide her blushing face. As she rushes away, a sudden thud echoes through the room. The guy shouts for her to watch out, but it's too late. She's already lost her footing and is tumbling toward the floor. In her haste, our girl trips and falls directly onto him. They end up sprawled on the floor together, locked in a moment of stunned silence as they look into each other's eyes from only inches away. She starts to stammer out an apology, but he cuts her off. He tells her point blank that he thinks he likes her, catching her completely off guard. The guy takes it even further, asking if she wants to go out with him. Our girl is frozen on his chest, her entire face turning a deep, heated red as she tries to process the sudden proposal. She can only stutter that she isn't really sure. He takes the answer in stride and suggests they should find out together, pulling her even closer to him. The distance between them completely vanishes as he leans in, intent on proving his feelings with more than just words. Her heart pounds against her ribs as he gently cups her face. The tension reaches a breaking point as they linger in the intimate silence. Just as things reach the point of no return, he suddenly pulls back and apologizes. They're left sitting awkwardly on the floor, and our girl is left wondering if that's really where he's calling it quits. Back in the present, Chung-Ah tells Youngju about taking the drunk guy home and finding out they were neighbors. She conveniently leaves out the near kiss, but her friend isn't satisfied. She's confused about how they actually started dating, if that was the only connection. Youngju points out that it makes zero sense for the man to be involved if he had nothing to do with her problems. Feeling the heat, our girl finally snaps and shouts that they aren't actually dating, finally revealing the truth. She explains that the lie about them dating only happened because everything from that night leaked. Now, they're just pretending to be a couple for damage control. Meanwhile, the man himself walks through the streets, completely isolated from the world by his massive headphones. As he moves through the city, he's constantly trailing a cloud of whispers. No matter where he goes, countless rumors seem to follow in his wake. Students gossip about his past, claiming he was a school thug with ties to the mob. They even whisper that he has a habit of preying on women who are already in relationships. Through it all, our guy hears nothing but his music. He approaches a woman leaning against a white car, who waves at him with a confident smile. It's exactly the kind of sight that fuels the fire for the students watching from the sidelines. The reality is that anyone who actually knows him knows the rumors are trash. Not a single one of those stories comes close to reflecting the real person he is. To understand the real Ban Seok-jae, we have to rewind. Even as a kid, his looks were on another level, marking him as different from everyone else his age. Despite the handsome face, he had zero popularity. While the other kids were out playing soccer, he'd sit alone by a tree, completely fascinated by things like the reproductive habits of insects. He had unique tastes, obsessed with J-pop and sci-fi like The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. His world was built on space, aliens, and arthropods, keeping him focused on his own interests instead of making friends. He was a total baby nerd with no interest in social climbing. But as he grew older, a massive wall appeared. The world began to judge him based on the lifestyle they imagined he led. The man never changed, but the world around him did. That shift hit his life hard as the whispers and judgments only got worse during his teenage years. Our boy was often baffled by the messages he got while brushing his teeth. He checks a string of texts from someone worried that a guy named Min Jae might have caught onto their feelings. Trying to be supportive, he texted back that the girl was pretty and should have more courage. He thought he was just being a solid friend, but the girls on the other end took his kindness as a full-blown romantic move. His natural kindness was constantly weaponized against him, fueling nasty rumors that he was some kind of manipulative flirt or a sly fox. Even when he politely rejected a girl's confession, people accused him of stringing them along, and he somehow became the scapegoat for every drama he wasn't even involved in. Our boy was once publicly trashed for supposedly stealing a friend's girlfriend, despite having never touched her. Everywhere he turned, he was treated like a commodity, with people constantly pestering him for his phone number, his ideal type, or free relationship advice as if he owed them his time. He spent his life suffocating under a wave of unwanted popularity he never asked for. The attention often turned aggressive, reaching a peak when one girl actually grabbed him and started screaming directly into his face in a fit of entitlement. With no other way to escape the constant harassment, the man decided to run away and enlist in the military. He desperately hoped that by the time he was discharged, the hype would have died down and he could finally live a normal, quiet life back on campus. Instead of a fresh start, his return was met with even darker gossip. The whispers grew more sinister, with students speculating if he had spent his time away in prison or if he'd been caught up in some messy crime of passion, leaving him absolutely rattled. Things hit a breaking point when a group of stalkers literally camped outside, waiting for him to show his face. Even his peers joined the pile on, mocking him with jokes about how handsome guys have it easy. Later, at a bar, the poor guy is stuck in another excruciating social trap, forcing a pained, fake smile for the sake of his friend while he dies inside. Pushed to his limit by the constant judgment, Ban Seok-jae decides his only option is to drop out of school entirely. He's on his way to hand in the withdrawal form when a sharp car horn stops him in his tracks. He looks over to find a stern woman waiting for him with a blunt command, "Get in." The woman at the wheel is his mother, 47-year-old Lim Ji-seon, and she clearly isn't in the mood for any of her son's drama. They head to a quiet bar where she launches into a brutal scolding session. She tears into him without holding back, leaving him sitting there looking like a kicked puppy, unable to even defend himself. Because he's actually a total softie, his mother's harsh words eventually move him to tears. He wallows in his own misery, thinking she's being incredibly unfair and has no clue how hard his daily life has become. But right as he's about to give up, Something in the room catches his eye and makes him look up in shock. This was the exact second he first encountered Chung-Ah. He locked onto her with a gaze so intense she couldn't even process it, leaving her standing there in total confusion. Now, you might be wondering how on earth a guy like him ended up in a situation like this. People couldn't believe how this supposedly timid guy suddenly became so bold. One minute he was a total mess, and the next he was standing behind her with a confident smirk, pulling her close like they'd been an item for years. He even leaned his head against her shoulder, leaving the girl wide-eyed and completely startled in his grip. He was flirting with her so aggressively it looked like he was about to go for a kiss right there, making her flush bright red. The story is going to break down exactly how this madness started, but for now we have to pause and look back at the events leading up to this moment. Back on the city streets, our boy is riding in a car with his older sister, 29-year-old Ban Yu-sun. She's already gotten the inside scoop from their aunt about his attempt to drop out and demands to know what suddenly changed his mind. He stays tight-lipped, knowing if he admits he's found a girl he likes, she'll never stop teasing him. His sister isn't buying it for a second, mocking how much he's grown before suddenly leaning over to plant a huge kiss on his cheek. He tries to dodge her, but it's too late. He's left with a glaring red lipstick mark for the world to see. Elsewhere, Chung-Ah is walking alone, trying to make sense of the chaos. She knows her friend was right, and that she needs to figure out what the man is really after. She wonders if he helped her out of genuine pity, or if there's some weird sense of camaraderie between them that she doesn't understand. A terrifying realization hits her like a bolt of lightning. What if he specifically targets women with unrequited crushes? She worries she's just his next victim. But she quickly tries to shake it off, telling herself not to doubt him without proof. Deep down, she still wants to believe he's one of the good ones. That tiny shred of faith is obliterated when she looks over and sees him in a car, laughing like a maniac with his face covered in red lipstick marks. He's so oblivious that he actually shouts her name with a massive grin, looking like he's having the best day of his life while she watches in horror. She's frozen in pure disgust as she stares at his smeared face. Now there are 3 facts to keep in mind here. First, the guy is actually just a massive nerd. Second, he's a nerd who happens to have a crushing, overwhelming obsession with her. The third and most critical fact is that he has absolutely no clue. He just caused a catastrophic misunderstanding with his crush. As he continues to wave and yell her name from the car, he remains blissfully unaware that her opinion of him has just crashed into the dirt. Inside the car, the man is convinced this random encounter is pure destiny, and just seeing her has made his entire week. He wonders if her heart is racing as fast as his, imagining a romantic connection. In reality, the girl is looking at him with a face of pure, unadulterated horror. She can't wrap her head around the fact that he was literally crying over another woman last weekend, yet he's already out with someone new today. Seeing the happy vibes radiating from the car, she asks herself who this mystery woman could be, finally deciding she is done with him for good. Desperate to escape, the girl turns and starts sprinting down the street at full speed. He and his sister are left watching her in total bewilderment, wondering why she suddenly took off like a world-class sprinter. From their perspective, her reaction is completely nonsensical. Later that day, the scene moves to a packed university lecture hall. Our girl sits at her desk and lets out a heavy, soul-crushing sigh. She wonders for a brief second if she overreacted, but then doubles down, reminding herself she already knew exactly what kind of player he was. She starts to panic, worried that he might actually be pissed at her for the blatant snub earlier. Her spiral is cut short when the professor notices a newcomer in the room. A guy stands at the front with a confident smile and introduces himself. It's Seok Jae, announcing himself as an industrial engineering major who just really wanted to audit this plant cultivation course. While the girl looks on in absolute shock, he flashes a bright, charming smile to the entire class, politely asking the professor to forgive the sudden intrusion. The professor is understandably baffled, noting that an engineering student auditing a random elective after the ad drop period is beyond strange. When asked what could have possibly drawn him here, the man gives a subtle sidelong glance at his crush and claims he just developed a sudden, intense interest in the subject. She is paralyzed, realizing he's crashed this class specifically to be near her. She can feel his eyes burning into her, and the sheer pressure of it makes her feel like her brain is melting. The stress becomes so unbearable that she ends up at a bar later that night, slamming a beer down in pure, unvented frustration. She tries to map out every time he's popped up lately, from the elective to the TOEIC Academy, where she saw him waving in the distance. She even tried to convince herself that his appearance at the cafe where she works was just a coincidence, even though he sat there in a mask and cap like a total weirdo. She slumps over her drink, unable to deal with the constant stalking. Her eyes flare with rage as she decides he's finally pushed things too far. She flashes back to him, waving so cheerfully in class, and gets even more heated. She decides to drown her stress the only way she knows how, by chugging her beer with a look of absolute fury. She's still fuming, wondering why he's targeting her and if their only link is that one night. Her internal rant is cut short when a drunk student stumbles over and leans in way too close. He starts barking about how they need to do a shot together, raising his mug for a forced toast. The mugs clink as other students in the bar laugh and egg them on, telling them to take a picture. Before she can even process what's happening, the drunk guy decides it's time for a hug and yanks her into a tight, aggressive embrace. She's left trapped and horrified, her eyes wide with shock at the man's hands-on behavior. The creep leans in even closer, whispering a slurred confession of love directly into her ear. She doesn't hesitate for a second, shutting him down hard and telling him she hates this kind of crap. She holds up a hand, ordering him to get his hands off her immediately. The drunk's face sours instantly, and he starts hurling insults, accusing her of playing hard to get. She stands her ground, telling him to back off because he's wasted, while another student tries to haul him toward the exit. In the background, someone else has finally seen enough and stands up from their table. The drunk keeps up his loud, pathetic rant, claiming her standards are too high and accusing her of throwing herself at guys who don't want her. He even threatens that if she were his daughter, he'd snap her legs. That's the last straw. The girl finally snaps back, demanding to know what the hell he just said to her. He just sneers at her, telling her to stop pretending she hasn't heard the rumors. He shouts that everyone already knows she's living with that trash from the industrial engineering department. She's left speechless, humiliated in public as the nasty rumors are used as a weapon against her. The entire bar goes dead silent as the confrontation unfolds. The drunk guy rubs his chin and mockingly asks if the guy's name was something like Ban Seok Jae. She looks completely shattered, unable to find the words to defend herself as the name rings out through the room. Yoon Woo-jin looks down at her with a smug, punchable smile, knowing exactly how much damage that name just did. The girl tells herself she cannot cry, because if she breaks now, it'll look like a confession. She feels totally isolated and lost, with no idea how to fix the mess her life has become. While she's staring at her shoes in despair, someone in white sneakers suddenly marches past her toward the drunk. Without a word of warning, a massive wave of beer hits the man square in the face. He's left drenched and sputtering, with liquid dripping from his hair and stinging his eyes. An empty glass mug is held up as the culprit stands revealed. Drenched and furious, Woo Jin starts screaming insults, but he freezes the moment he looks up. Standing right in front of him is Seok Jae, staring down with a calm, terrifying intensity that instantly silences the drunk. Our boy stands there smirking at the soaked Woo Jin, dismissively saying, "Ah, my mistake." He leans in close to the man while Chung-Ah stands between them in total shock. He then drops a bombshell, declaring to the entire room that the rumors they've been hearing are actually dead wrong. The girl looks up at him, completely lost as he pulls her close with a protective arm. He stares down the crowd and sets the record straight. They aren't living together, but then he follows it up with an even bigger lie, claiming they are actually dating. She can only stare in disbelief at the sheer confidence in his voice. The man leans back with a smug, predatory grin, adding that they kept it secret because he's so crazy about her. He spins a tale where she's the one he's desperately chasing. Standing tall over the humiliated Woo Jin, he leaves the entire bar stunned into silence by the sudden revelation. Rewind to 15 minutes before the showdown. The scene is the same bar, but before the chaos kicked off, the guy is sitting at a separate table with his buddies who are all laughing and drinking, while he quietly tracks his crush from across the room. With his chin resting on his hand, he's blushing and smiling to himself while watching her from afar. He thinks she looks incredibly cool because she can handle her liquor and seems to have so many friends. He's clearly completely enamored, just admiring her from a distance. His mood flips to pure rage the second he notices Woo Jin starting to harass her. The adoration vanishes, replaced by a dark fury. He thinks to himself, "That bastard, how dare he touch our Chung-Ah?" He grips his beer mug so hard his hand starts to shake, preparing himself to intervene. He stands up and marches toward the crowd, mug in hand. Every step feels heavy and purposeful as the bar noise fades out. However, right as he gets to the target, his lack of coordination kicks in. He ends up stumbling and nearly tripping over his own feet as he clumsily approaches the group from behind. He lets out a panicked scream and hurls the entire mug of beer right into the guy's face. The impact leaves the drunk drenched and gasping for air. The man wipes his eyes and starts swearing up a storm, demanding to know which bastard just assaulted him. Our boy has two chronic issues that always lead to misunderstandings. The first is his extremely clipped way of speaking, caused by his total lack of social skills. When he tries to apologize for the beer, it comes out as a cold, blunt, "Ah, my bad," which only makes him look like a dangerous psycho. He starts to worry that his apology was too short, so he decides to smile to ease the tension. Unfortunately, he has a reflex where his facial muscles turn vicious whenever he panics. The result is a terrifying, wide-eyed grin that looks like a death threat, scaring the absolute hell out of everyone at the bar. That defensive reflex of his is exactly why everyone finds him so terrifying, even when he isn't trying to be. A quick flashback shows our boy looming over a drunk student like a shark, while Chung-Ah watches from the sidelines, completely speechless. Back in the present, the heavy silence of the night finally settles over a quiet bedroom. In the dead of night, our girl bolts upright in bed, gasping for air and drenched in a cold sweat. She stares into the shadows, her mind looping back to everything that went down at the bar. The memories refuse to fade, leaving her wondering how her life managed to get this messy. Resting her head on her hand, she tries to figure out which version of the man is the real deal. A vision of him looking vulnerable and weeping surfaces in her mind, a side of him she labels pure love. That image of his tears is haunting her, making it impossible to pin down his true character. She cycles through the different masks he wears, from the cunning fox to the dangerous thug. Then there's the memory of him covered in lipstick marks, which earns him the title of son of a bitch. Fed up with the mental gymnastics, she decides sitting alone in the dark isn't helping anyone. She figures a beer might help clear her head and heads out into the humid night. While walking past the apartment complex and working on a popsicle, she notices something weird up ahead and slows to a crawl, her confusion mounting. A blonde woman in a brown coat is currently losing a fight with the building's keypad. The device just keeps mocking her with error beeps and a recorded voice telling her to try again. Our girl keeps her distance, eyeing the stranger and wondering who this person is actually looking for. The blonde checks her phone only to get a voicemail, and her patience snaps. She clenches her teeth and lets out a raw scream of fuck at the top of her lungs. Chung-Ah nearly jumps out of her skin, watching this total meltdown from the sidewalk with wide eyes. The stranger rants about some bastard who won't pick up his phone before she starts physically wailing on the glass door. Our girl stands there sweating, paralyzed by the awkwardness of the situation as she watches the woman's aggressive attempt to break inside. Finally finding her voice, our girl calls out a nervous, "Excuse me?" When the blonde whips around with a sharp glare, she awkwardly gestures for her to go ahead and enter first. The stranger looks confused but doesn't argue, and they both head into the building together. The elevator ride is pure torture. Our girl can feel the woman's gaze boring into her, making the silence feel heavy enough to choke on. She quickly stabs the button for her floor, wishing the lift would move faster while the stranger continues to study her intensely. The blonde is having her own thoughts, wondering why this girl is staring and if they've met before. She decides the face looks familiar and continues to scan her for clues. Meanwhile, our girl keeps her eyes glued to the elevator door, doing her absolute best to play it cool under the pressure. The woman notes that our girl didn't even have to press a button and follows her out into the hall. They step off on the same floor, and while she tries to tell herself it's just a coincidence, the dread starts to settle in. She's praying this is just a neighbor she hasn't met yet. Then, the logic hits her. If this woman were actually a neighbor, she would have known the front door code. Panicked, she wonders if the stranger is hunting for a friend on the third floor. Her heart starts thumping against her ribs as the whole situation starts feeling a lot more suspicious. Our girl watches as the woman comes to a halt in the middle of the hallway. Her pulse is racing as she waits for her suspicions to be confirmed. Holding her breath, she watches the stranger reach into her pocket to pull something out. The woman stops dead in front of a specific unit and delivers a heavy kick to the door. Our girl flinches as the stranger bellows, "Hey, Banseok J," and freezes in place. The mystery is solved. The blonde is looking for her neighbor. The shouting continues as the woman calls him a son of a bitch and screams for him to get his ass out here immediately while hammering on the doorbell. Our girl hides behind her own door, terrified and desperate to know what kind of drama is unfolding between these two. The door finally swings open to reveal our boy in a black tank top, looking thoroughly annoyed. He asks why she's showing up without a call, but the woman doesn't even offer a hello. She just tells him to move it because she needs the bathroom right this second. The door slams shut, and the hallway goes quiet. Chung-Ah remains glued to the other side of her door, straining to hear their voices through the wall. When she hears them asking where they have to go, her mind immediately jumps to a vision of them in an intimate, heart-filled embrace. She leans against the wall with a knowing smirk, convinced she finally has the man's number. She tells herself he's just an ordinary son of a bitch. Between the woman's sudden arrival and their familiar tone, all her suspicions about him being a total player are officially confirmed. The next day finds our girl riding the bus, staring out at the city with a heavy sigh. She's completely drained by the previous night's chaos. She's now convinced that Seok-jae is a dangerous person and that she needs to take action before things get even more out of hand. She weighs her options. Should she end the fake relationship or just demand he keep his distance? The problem is her secret crush. She's terrified that as long as he has that leverage over her, he'll never let her go. In her mind, she sees him as a little devil, playfully dangling her secrets just out of reach. Frustration boils over as she wonders why she ever let him into her life in the first place. She's brought all this misery on herself, and in a moment of pure despair, she starts banging her head against the bus seat. The other passengers can only stare in confusion at the girl having a public meltdown. A memory of him surfaces. A moment on the bus when she felt a hand brush against her hair. She'd looked up in surprise to find Seok-jae standing right over her. He'd given her a casual greeting and a smile, catching her totally off guard in the middle of her commute. Back in the present, she recalls him waving cheerfully at her. Later that night, she meets her friend Young-ju at a barbecue joint. As they sit, our girl realizes her friend was right from the start. There is no such thing as goodwill without a hidden agenda. Remembering that smile of his, she concludes she's just become his latest prey. She sees herself as the perfect target, a woman with an unrequited crush on someone else. In her mind, she fits perfectly into his specific niche of pursuing women who are already taken by someone else's heart. At the restaurant, Chung-Ah unloads all her frustrations about Seok-jae onto Young-ju. It's constant. Every time he sees an opening, he's pestering her for food, drinks, or a movie. She admits she's run out of excuses and asks for advice, to which the friend bluntly suggests just being direct and telling him to stop. Our girl is paralyzed by the fact that the man knows exactly who she's actually pining for. One wrong move, and he could use that secret to control her. Young-ju takes a calm sip of her drink and points out he doesn't seem like the type to actually do that, which gives our girl a tiny bit of hope. The friend explains that while the guy has a reputation for sleeping around, there aren't any stories about him making things messy for women. She's confident that if he's told a firm no, he'll likely just back off. She adds with a smirk that while he'll probably still try to flirt, he isn't the type to force himself on anyone. Chung-Ah starts to feel like she can finally breathe again. Seeing her friend relax, Young-ju immediately pivots to her own problems. She asks if our girl is going to answer her proposal yet. She's desperate for members to keep her club from being shut down and begs her to join. The pitch is simple. Just be a ghost member to fill the quota and save the club. While her friend begs with puppy dog eyes, our girl does the math. The guy has plenty of other women, so why would he fixate on her? She decides that a direct conversation is the best way to end the drama and finally agrees to help Young-ju out. The friend is ecstatic, rambling on about the massive club room and the cool upperclassmen, but she quickly realizes she's being ignored. Our girl is locked onto her phone, thumbs flying before the friend can even finish a thought. Chung-Ah looks up and announces that the deed is done. Totally confused by the sudden shift in energy, Young-ju asks what she sent, with a look of ironclad determination. Her friend explains that she just messaged Seok-jae to finally put an end to their little arrangement. She dramatically slams her phone onto the table, showing off the chat window like a trophy. The bridge is burned and the message is out there. There's no turning back now. When night falls, she heads to the park and spots him sitting on a bench in the distance. The second he sees her, he's on his feet, waving his arm and shouting her name with a smile so bright it's almost blinding. When she reaches him, our boy blushes and asks if she's been waiting long. He looks genuinely thrilled to see her, which makes what she has to do feel 10 times worse. She tells him she's glad he showed up and gets right to the point. They need to talk about their relationship. Looking at him, she feels a sudden, sharp pang of guilt. His eyes are so clear and look so innocent that breaking things off feels like kicking a puppy. She tries to shake the feeling as he watches her with a look of pure confusion. She knows she has to stay strong. She finally blurts out that she's been thinking about this for days. While he just stares at her blankly, she explains that they're drawing way too much attention from everyone else. She admits she feels terrible that he's taking heat for a situation she dragged him into. His expression shifts into one of genuine heartbreak. Hesitating, she finally asks the big question. Should they just tell everyone they've broken up? She peeks at him, half expecting him to get angry and turn on her. He stands up with his head bowed, sending her into a panic. She's sure he's about to lash out or use her secrets, but then she hears a sound and sees tears splashing onto the pavement. Her jaw drops as she realizes the big, intimidating guy is actually crying. She calls his name softly, but he just collapses back onto the bench and starts sobbing his heart out. In that moment, every single thing she thought she knew about the man is flipped upside down. She stares at him, paralyzed by the realization that his most lethal weapon wasn't his charm, his looks, or his reputation. It was something she never saw coming. His greatest weapon was his tears. Seeing him broken down like this completely demolishes her resolve to be firm with him. Her plan to walk away is effectively dead on arrival. Her mind is racing at 100 miles an hour while she watches him weep. She can't wrap her head around why he's taking it this hard. Is this really just about his ego being bruised? The two of them sit in a heavy silence on the bench. She wonders if he actually thought their fake dating was the real thing. She wants to ask him outright, but seeing him this pathetic makes it impossible to find the words. Driven by pure guilt, she suddenly pulls him into a tight embrace. Our boy looks up with wide, watery eyes, completely stunned. He manages to choke out a request for her not to get the wrong idea about why he's reacting like this. She assures him that she isn't doing this because she dislikes him. While patting his back to soothe him, she explains that she just felt guilty for dragging him into all this drama for no reason. She genuinely thought she was doing him a favor by letting him go. To her shock, he pulls her in even tighter, hugging her back with a strength that surprises her. While she's still processing how things escalated this quickly, he pulls back and grips her arms, his expression shifting into one of pure determination. With a massive blushing grin, he suddenly suggests they should just go out for real. Our girl is floored, only able to stammer out a confused "sorry?" He doubles down immediately, arguing that if they actually date, then they won't be unrelated anymore. He grips her shoulders firmly and tells her he doesn't care about the rumors as long as she's officially his girlfriend. He points out that if she says yes, her guilt can vanish forever. She can only stare at him, her brain completely short-circuiting at the proposal. Our guy leans in until their faces are inches apart, whispering that the plan is flawless. The proximity sends our girl into a full-blown panic, her face turning a deep shade of crimson as she stammers out a confused attempting to claw back some dignity. She points out that dating is usually a two-way street, where both people actually share mutual feelings. To her surprise, he agrees with her point completely. Resting his chin on his hand, he locks her in an intense gaze and drops a truth bomb that stalls her logic. He already told her he likes her, so the feelings part of the equation is already solved on his end. There isn't a hint of a joke in his voice as he reaffirms his desire to be with her. The weight of his sincerity is heavy enough to leave her breathless. Overwhelmed and unable to find a real argument, she can only whisper "Sunbae," as the reality of his confession finally sinks in. The art style shifts to a chibi aesthetic as our girl finds her spine. Standing up to declare that no means no, our boy immediately deflates, collapsing onto the bench in a dejected heap while letting out a pitiful sobbing sound. She feels a brief surge of triumph for dodging his move, though a weird part of her is still confused, thinking she just got rejected for a second time even though she's the one saying no. The man looks genuinely crushed, murmuring that it took every ounce of his courage just to speak those words. He sits there in a state of visible disappointment, gripping his sleeve like a kicked puppy. Seeing him this vulnerable starts to work on her conscience, and her expression softens into one of deep uncertainty. Even through his tears, he asks softly if they can at least keep the fake relationship going for now. At this moment, she finally understands why this guy is so popular. Even when he's down, his words and actions have a gentle, magnetic pull that's hard to ignore. Chung-Ah watches him closely, noting a strange persistence that somehow makes his unfairly handsome face even more charming. It hits her that this man is actually incredibly dangerous to her peace of mind. If she doesn't draw a hard line right now, she's going to be in serious trouble. She addresses him with a serious tone, and he gives her a quiet, attentive "yeah." Deciding that honesty is the only way out, she asks him straight up. She doesn't understand why a guy like him would ever want to date someone like her in the first place. He's left speechless as she continues her interrogation. She admits she's completely lost on why he claims to like her, or why he keeps going so far out of his way to help her. She trails off, leaving a heavy silence in the air as she waits for a real explanation. The silence in the park drags on, making her feel even more awkward. She can't figure out why he isn't reacting to her question. As she stares at his motionless form, she starts to spiral into a panic, terrified that he's about to break down and start crying on her again. Seok-jae finally cuts through the tension with a simple low confirmation. Got it. The sudden shift in his tone catches Chung-Ah off guard. She looks up at him, puzzled by the abrupt change in his vibe. The dejected act vanishes as he flashes a confident smile. Looking her right in the eye, he asks if all she needs is a clear reason. The scene then cuts away from the park to the quiet city streets at night, where a voice near an apartment building whispers that something feels off. Outside an apartment complex, a group of obsessed stalkers is lying in wait. They're checking their watches, noting that Seok-jae should be home by now. They joke about him being on a date, though one laughs it off, saying he wouldn't bother coming home if he actually had a girl. They're busy mocking his reputation as the campus net fisherman when a mysterious woman nearby interrupts with a single word, girlfriend. The woman demands to know if he really has a girlfriend now. The girls are shocked she hasn't heard the news, confirming that the man has indeed been dating lately. According to their gossip, ever since he landed a girlfriend, he's been walking around with a brand new level of confidence, like he owns the whole neighborhood.